First question, we have a ceremony uniform.
Was that sorry?
We have a ceremony uniform.
We do, yes. I'm sorry, there was no dress code. It's very late to me. Could you get out of all these
Alex, everybody was expecting a bit more. Especially you.
Good evening, everyone. Bit of a quiet crew tonight. We had a lot of online interest, and I thought people would show up. Anyway, Bill Gimble's my name. I declared the meeting open. Now, I'll just do the acknowledgement of the country, then I'll introduce our guests, and then we'll see where we go. So, we're honoured to be meeting on the ancestral lands of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We acknowledge these First Australians as the traditional custodians of this land. These cultures are among the oldest living in human history. We pay respect to the elders of the communities of the Murrumbidgee region and extend our recognition to their descendants, past, present and future. Now, tonight we have representatives of the Justice and Community Safety Directorate, Emergency Service people, and we've got somebody from the Planning Directorate here. But I'd like Kruger to come up and take over now. What else, Kruger? You want to have the floor? Thank you, and
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, can you go on the microphone because we've got people online.
Sure. And I got soft voice as well, so. But can you all hear me? Fantastic. Okay, so I put together a short presentation in which I'll be going through few points as you can see here. So firstly, I'll talk about the need for the station, and I'll also talk about the options and factors that was considered in terms of locating the station, and what's the preferred location that has been identified through the process, and also I'll share the concept plan at this stage, also next steps. So these are the sort of things I would like to share with you, and of course at the end, please feel free to ask questions. And with me, the Chief Superintendent from Emergency Service Agency, and the Senior Director from Environment Planning and Environment Planning Sustainability Directorate, and my manager, Franco, Executive Branch Manager, Capital Works and Infrastructure. So we are here to respond to your questions. So, firstly, now we know that the doorstep is growing. The Morogoro, currently around 12,000 people living in there, approximately, and over a number of years, or up to maybe 2060, it is expected to grow to some 86,000 population, which is currently what Gangarin is. So clearly, that population growth is something is important in planning the emergency service, particularly the patient's care, the ambulance services, and the fire and rescue services. So, in that context, the emergency service ESA has done a network of station analysis. In that analysis, what is in the ambulance services and fire and rescue services? The critical factor is the response time. How quickly they can reach the people to serve. So that response time is one of the most critical factors. So in that analysis, ESA went through what's the response time, whether we can maintain the national benchmark or make it better, or the other way around. As population grows and the area spreads, like, we know that, right, Coons, then Prospect and Midterm and also, expansion. So what does it all mean to the response time? So yes, we went through that analysis, and obviously that really identified the need for an emergency service facility in this part of the ACT. So this is where that need has been asserted, and this is an opportunity for us to pick up some of the lessons learned in Gangari. If you are aware of that, in Gangari, the emergency service right in the middle of the Gangarian CBD, which was built somewhere in 1998. By the time Gangarian has got only 12,000 people, it made perfect sense to. But now it's, the CBD has grown so big, the traffic condition and all that has been significantly impeding the ability to reach out to people within the acceptable time. So really we can pick up that one, the CBD congestion and the vehicle queuing, traffic lights, pedestrians are not the perfect match for emergency service facility. So keeping that in mind, ESA went through, they looked a number of options, and amongst that, particularly two locations have been assessed in detail. One is, where Morogoro might have its group center or commercial core. The other option was the corner of Cotter Road and John Walton Drive. So in that analysis, as I mentioned, the critical factor response time was assessed along with what's the primary coverage and what's the secondary coverage. So that what area it can cover. So essentially, we need to think as a network, an integrated network of stations cover the whole of ACT. So clearly, that's relevant to Weston Creek. And of course, as I said, when it comes to the commercial center, clearly the lessons learned from Gangari and the CBD impact has been considered in the assessment. And also the other aspect of is that, well, when you have the facility, you also might as well, to ensure the training opportunities that the facility could potentially have. So that's also and also future development access, but the beach area coverage and the ability to cover the parts of the western area. So this has been basically part of the consideration, and ESA was able to arrive the preferred location, the proposed location is shown in the map. Basically, the corner of Cotter Road and John Gorton Drive. Technically it's Block 2, Section 58 Duffy. One thing I would like to point out is that the whole block is something like 90,000 square meter, but we are not talking about occupying a station in the 90,000 square meter yet. We are talking about some 10% of that block, because what we are really looking for a compact design, functional compact design that basically meets the needs of people, at the same time respect the landscape quality and the green environment that's currently having. So in a planning context, that is no zone as in use at 3, meaning hills, buffers, and ridges. So we have had discussion with NCA to ensure that meets the National Capital Plan requirements. So NCA has considered our request and was able to permit this community protection facility, and ESA falls under community protection facility. So when it comes to the ACT government's planning process, we don't have to rezone or anything, but we certainly need to include the prison map and the prison code requirements to ensure the proposed development will meet defined planning and the environmental requirements. So that process is the next step. It's currently underway, and Alex is with us, and she'll be able to clarify more on that. We have done a fair bit of due diligence, I'll say preliminary due diligence. We have consulted with the conservator on the flora and fauna, and have no objections on that respect. We also, consulted the Heritage Council and so on. So essentially, and we also consulted with a range of agencies involved in like TCCS, EPSDD, of course, to ensure this location, is suitable, can potentially suitably developed for an emergency service facility. Conceptually, this is how we are looking at the station, and the left side is fire rescue, and the right side is ambulance service. Actually, particularly with the ambulance service, we are considering fair bit of capabilities in that. One of the capabilities because specialized response capability. So essentially, that basically has the ability to provide patients care, improve patients care in this part of the ACT. And also, we also want to ensure, we are in 2023, so ensure the emerging technology and of course sustainability requirements are part of our planning process. So this is where we are now. So in terms of next steps, I talked about the need to incorporate prison code amendment, which is the vehicle of doing that is through a draft variation of the plan process. So that process is expected to commence this Friday, and basically, the process will run until 19th of May, which is my birthday. And that period will provide ability for people to provide input, raise issues, comments, or suggest improvements. And also we will, as that we have done a level of due diligence and a concept level planning. Then we have to move into relatively more detailed level of planning we call preliminary sketch plan design. So we will undertake that part of work. So you may see few people going around collecting sample and doing like soil testing and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the next step. And of course, following that, then of course there is another opportunity for community to provide feedback when it comes to a development application process. So that's a second set of planning process in which again the community will be able to provide input to improve the development proposal. And of course we need money to build. So we also provide justification and business case to get funding to construct this facility. So I'll stop with that, and probably I will any questions here. Thank you.
If anybody's got any questions, we appreciate that you on the microphone so it lines up with the video. Are there any questions? And now Roger will give you the microphone. Go behind you. Sorry. Do you want to go first, Val?
Thank you. Okay, just a small question. Will there be an entrance exit on the Cotton Road as well as Dixon Drive? Is the back part of it on Dixon Drive? It doesn't go through to the both roads.
I'll jump on the microphone, I can probably answer without it, but just to be clear, the only entry and exit for the station will be out onto Cotter Road. There won't be any access to the station on Dixon Drive whatsoever.
So it doesn't go right out to Dixon.
Doesn't go out that far. It is situated on Cotter Road.
What happens in the morning when they're bumper to bumper traffic?
Well, that's going to be a part of our planning as we move forward with regard to how we get out of that area. So we're going to be putting strategies in place and working with the project team to make sure that our needs are met. I did make the comment at the Malongolo residents meeting last week. Some of the methods that we can use is getting control of traffic lights out of near our stations. There's other stations that have it. Ainslie Fire Station being a good example of that. We've actually got control of the traffic lights there where we can hit a button to turn the lights green, which makes all the traffic go through and then clear that intersection for us to be able to go through. So when we work with the project team, we'll make sure that they're aware of what our needs are to ensure that some of those measures can be incorporated through into the bill to make sure that we're not disadvantaged and neither are the residents.
Well, I hope they catch all the booms and
Well, that's another thing. It was a point that was made by the Malongolo Residents Association as well. Having a facility like this in a community that has 24/7 presence with some big burly boys and girls, firefighters and airbase is actually an advantage to dissuading people from that sort of behaviour as well, because we're out and about in the community. So it might go some way to alleviate that in the future, but we'll wait and see. I'm not going to make any promises.
Thank you.
I've brought a list of questions here that have come in online over the last week. Sorry, they're good. The first one is, will the facility include police? I was going to ask that anyway, but...
This particular facility is for emergency service facility. That's basically fire rescue and ambulance services. So this is for that planning. The planning for the ACT policing is actually separate. They're actually it's actually a separate service basically. Of course, in Gangaram everything is together. It's not particularly a good example. It's not particularly working well. So this is basically all about the emergency service.
Okay, just for you to take back to your masters, we've had a long standing view that we should have a permanent police presence here, either over at Malongolo or in Weston Creek somewhere. And we're sort of going to keep on going. There's a new budget letter going in, and we'll write it again. We got told again, no, you don't need local police. But we do welcome the initiative to bring the other services here. We do understand the time frame issue, definitely. It'll also mean we won't have speeding emergency vehicles, rightly speeding, coming from a long way away for a lot of incidents. So that's good, that's positive. Another question, will the facilities in Phillip be closed when this is over? No?
I can add a bit more information to that one. As Keith pointed out during his presentation, positioning of fire and ambulance stations is a strategic decision around the network of stations to get the best possible coverage throughout the whole of the ACT. Phillip is obviously in a key position for us, and this station will be in addition to the coverage that already comes into this area from Phillip Fire Station, and let's not forget Canberra Fire Station in the Western Creek as well, because they're probably more likely to be heading down to that area. So this station will fill a definite gap down into that Malongolo maintain that network for us.
The issue we talked about in the committee the other night, the issue of the distances they're travelling is getting to be quite a concern. If somebody's coming from Canberra to go to Coombs to attend an emergency, it's a long wait. It's also a lot of noise in the middle of the night.
Correct. So that's why, it's important for us to be able to have this facility in that area to be able to stop that distance of travel and save ourselves some time.
Right, next week they go. I've got 6 of them. You've answered the portion of the block. We've answered on the entrance and exit, and we're a bit concerned in terms of time frame about why you wouldn't put a driveway or entrance onto Dixon Drive if you're servicing the northwestern type area. There's a lot of people who might need an ambulance in Duffy and Holder, and there's got to be a temptation somewhere to just put a drive through.
I think I've probably talked about the operational requirements. I think I'll give Cougar to talk about the planning requirements and some of the impacts that may cause. Oh, sorry.
So I might say that because this is a facility that's going into the non-urban zone, the Heritage and Buffer Zone, and in the discussions with the NCA and also the Planning Directorate, just that needs to maintain that sort of buffer between Wollongong and Weston Creek. So there'll be a requirement that they need to have some sort of buffering of the vegetation and green space. So having that access straight through to Dixon Drive will undermine that desire to sort of keep that buffer, the green space.
Alex, what are they? You've answered 2 questions now. The rest of that question is why there and not on one of the other sites the government might have access into the area? For example, the corner of Cotter Road and Newcombe, or where the parks people are occupied on Cotter Road, John Gordon Drive at the moment, Cotter Road thing is. Why this particular site?
I'll give you from an ESA's perspective. So, there's a little bit to unpack there. There's a few answers to give around that one. The way that we position our stations now, as Google alluded to before, and using Gungahlin as the example, we've learned that from positioning previous stations in town centres has made it very difficult for us to respond. So we've started to move outside of those town centres and found that it is easier to respond in than it is to respond out, because once you're already in the town centre, you're stuck in the town centre until you get in, and your interactions with pedestrians and other road users is obviously increased. The amount of time you come out and obviously is increased that way. So the reason we moved out, so there was consideration about the group centre within the Wollongong area, but that would have contradicted that method that we've come up with. So we moved outside to be able to do that. Part of the reason that we are where we are and not a little bit further towards the Weston Creek and down towards Newcombe Drive is to try and achieve what I talked about a little bit earlier, considering the development of Wollongong going out to the west, out towards that Cotter Road, and will eventually, to my understanding, link up in some way back towards Bindoody Street, which will sort of link back into Gilconan, which will then create that strategically zoned effect to be able to get primary and secondary response. It would actually open that up to make the Aranda Fire Station or the Gilconan Fire Station even more useful into Wollongong levels as well. So we have the primary response from the fire station in Wollongong back into Weston Creek and also around into that further into Wollongong as well. If we moved it a little bit further back towards Weston Creek, we would have lost that coverage of that built up area that we were trying to achieve.
Well, I think I'm hearing an argument from you to not delay the bridge.
Once again, that's outside my remit, but we'll do what we can.
We're very excited. So there's one other question, and I think you answered concerns for cyclists and walkers. When an emergency vehicle comes out onto the road, somebody said, well, what about cyclists? What about pedestrians? I assume you have safe operating practices.
That's right. So basically, what I have presented is a concept plan of the emergency service station. Importantly, we will recognize the needs of the cyclists, sentimental users, pedestrians. So we work with closely with GCCS and ensure we reduce the conflicts and it's safer for all the users.
Now, is it going to be funded in this year's budget?
So also, just the last comment that the territory plan variation is proposing to add the use of the site, but has some extra controls for it, and some of it is to make sure that pedestrian and cyclist interaction with the station is prioritised to safety and not once that's also going to be a requirement in the territory plan as well for them to manage that.
Okay, thank you. There's some questions here.
So you mentioned just now the Randeville Common Fire Station. I think perhaps I'd be interested to hear your reflections on how that's integrated into the local community, because I think it's not a one-to-one comparison, but I think it'd be enlightening to sort of hear sort of how you guys have sort of worked with the local community to make it, I presume, a fairly low impact environment.
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question, and it's a really good observation. There's another station where we've relocated it out of a town centre into a suburban area. So it used to be in Ray Street in Belconnen, out onto Blackthorn Street, that's what it's called, on the north side. So when that was relocated, we got out of that town centre and moved it down to Aranda. So obviously there were similar concerns of some of the people that were worried about the amenity of their suburb during that stage as well. Multi-unit complexes across the road with a lot of people in them. There was a nursing home next door to the station that was first built. It was also taking up part of an existing green space as well. Since we've moved in there, the community has really embraced the fire station and realised that the amenity that the fire station and the ambulance station provides to the community far outweighs any concerns that they had at the beginning of the project. So once again, people that join fire and rescue and also our colleagues at the ambulance services are very civic-minded people. They're very proud of the communities that they serve and very proud of the communities that they work in. So they do everything that they can to make sure that they are of benefit to that community as well. So I can assure people that the fires and the ambos that work out of those stations will do everything they can to be able to ensure that the amenity and the value of the suburb is kept, and want to be able to work within that community, because that's what we're there to do.
Just down before, I didn't realise that you weren't going to have police with you. And as far as the green belt is concerned, after the firestorm, it was so that there weren't any trees, pine plantations there, or buildings there. So a road onto Dixon Drive for only your use would be a big advantage in coming out of Cotter, as the other discussions had. A road wouldn't affect the green belts to stop the fires coming to burn all houses again, if you remember from 20 years ago. We had it in January 2003.
And yeah, we realised that obviously this Weston Creek and the Camp R and areas like that were greatly affected by those bushfires, and as you're aware, the McLeod report into the operational response to that made a number of recommendations into that, one of them being the provision of bushfire tankers to be able to protect the urban, to help with protection of the urban fringe. Our intention as an operational service from fire and rescue is to be able to increase that capability as part of this station, so it would actually be marked to house vehicles like that to be able to protect the urban fringe of the western side of the ACT. So that's how we would approach that from an operational service perspective. As far as the planning side and roads and things like that, we'd like to work planning colleagues to answer those questions.
To go to the southern suburbs, coming out Dixon Drive, it's an awful lot from a big intersection street.
Yeah.
Just a question for you. How big what's your operational thoughts for the station at Cotton? Will there be one crew or two crews and cross-tasking? Because you just mentioned the bushfire.
Yeah, that's right.
You've also got parks of conservation across the road who stand up pretty much full-time.
Yeah.
And you've also got the RFS out at Rivers.
Yeah, correct. So we'll have, from a fire and rescue perspective, we'll have one full-time crew there, which will have a pumper, so an urban pumper, but it'll be cross-crewed onto those bushfire tankers, so CAFS tankers. On times of high fire danger, our process and policies is to stand up extra crews that will actually man those appliances at times of high fire danger. So that's the way that this will operate as well. So middle of winter, not necessarily a requirement to be able to staff those particular bushfire vehicles, but obviously in the height of summer, as the indices raise, then we get extra crews in to be able to staff those appliances on those high fire danger days. As far as ACTAS goes, my understanding is that they'll have two permanent crews there, and as Coogan mentioned, they will also have their specialised capabilities there as well. So we're talking about remote area, four-wheel drive ambulances, bariatric ambulances and those sorts of things to be able to have that specialist capability to their response.
G'day. This might be a bit early in the process to raise this concern, just because you're yet to the preliminary sketch plan. Just from the fact that I understand that years ago when Baptist Hospital was made, the ambulance bays at the hospital were made large enough for the ambulances they used at the time, but were too small for the ambulances that were brought in about a decade later. And so I'm just curious, like, what are the plans for, because like only 10% of the site, of the possible site is being planned to be taken. What are the plans for like future-proofing to make sure that it's large enough for the, as you said, the bariatric ambulances, which are going to be a larger part of our care provisions in Canberra Health in the future. So just curious what the plans are for future-proofing in that way.
As far as ACTAS is concerned, that's a very good question and observation as well. They are really taking advantage of this site. This will be the largest ambulance station that ACTAS actually has. So they're really taking advantage to be able to future-proof this, to be able to ensure that they do have that capability to house those vehicles well into the future as well. And just while we're on about sustainability also, fire and rescue in particular and ACTAS as well, and the ESA as a whole is trying to move towards an electrified fleet. Fire and rescue was, I'm not sure, not many people know about this fun fact, but fire and rescue was the first fire service in Australia to become fully diesel operated. So now we are probably going to head towards being the first jurisdiction to be able to have a fully electrified fleet into the future as well, just given that we are small and agile. ACTAS is also heading down that pathway as well. It's heading towards a more hybrid fleet, but once that technology catches up and they're able to develop fully electric ambulances, they will certainly start that. And so to ensure we're able to do that moving forward, our new station at Acton and of course this station at Molonglo will have that infrastructure in place to be able to charge fully electric vehicles.
Just a continuation on from that question. When they planned Molonglo, there were 56,000 to go there, which is one heck of a lot. And with the bridge, it's supposed to be, it was put back a year, and it's supposed to be finished in 2025. They're even allowed for light rail. So how's that forward thinking?
I've got one further question. Is it going to be a maintenance workshop as well? Where's the maintenance on the vehicles going to be going?
No, the ESA workshops is a facility at Red Fairburn where our headquarters is, and there's no plan to move away from that anytime soon, and there certainly won't be any maintenance done at that Northern location.
So, sort of a comment, if you're electrifying, you'll need some pretty good battery capacity. So we'll need some pretty good grid augmentation here to make it happen. So will that be a flow-on benefit from the station? Or are you going to hoard all your wires to yourself?
Once again, that's outside of my remit being the end user, so I'll just leave that to somebody else.
Over to planners.
So, basically, the service availability, service capacity, all are part of the detailed planning and the design work that we need to carry out. Those are the part of the next steps process. We go into the next stage is preliminary sketch plan that not just look at the station itself, it also looks at the service availability, service capacity, what augmentation that would be required, even that will go to the extent of whether we need to provide additional traffic capacity at the intersection and so on. So it basically goes into all service, including electricity and transport.
Or you get to do something with our negative duck curves. Alex, have you got something on that? Sticking up all your pencils there.
No, the only thing I'd just like to say again is just that the consultation starts on Friday. It's available on the planning website and on the legislation register, the draft variation document, closing on his birthday, so the 19th of May. So very, very keen to get people's comments. So in the document as well has the comments from the NCA because it's non-urban land. The National Capital Plan does apply to it too. So we can't be inconsistent with the National Capital Plan, which is why we've got some issues that we do. And so that's all I've got to add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for coming. The other thing we've got on the agenda tonight is to talk about what we're likely to put into our budget letter. As you may be aware, every year the Chief Minister invites all the community groups to provide input into the budget. Over the last couple of years, we've done reasonably okay. We're going over past year's letters and stuff is happening. The various traffic lights on the various intersections have been quite dangerous and about to happen. Brearley Street is sort of happening. We treat that as the first instalment in it. We're getting fire and ambulance crew. Now we just need to push hard on police. We've got these ambulance, we're going to argue for one more. But stuff is happening. So anyway, we've put this list up of what we're likely to put in the budget letter. And we're seeking input. We want to get it out soon, like into this week if we can, but this is where we've landed. So something on governance and livability, and we felt the planning review was underfunded. Perished the thought of us writing a letter to give the planning directorate more money to do their job, but I think they need it. They probably need some expert advice too from what we've seen. It may have been following in the media, the whole town's been underwhelmed. So then we talk about environment, climate, and well-being. Heat Island's with us. Climate change is with us. What we have learned, we did learn from the 2019-20 bushfire season, we have no reliable measurement of smoke. We have no reliable measurement of air quality here. So that's summer, but it goes on all year. If you get into winter time, people are talking about as we move into the gas switch off, they're talking about substituting with wood fires. My heat pumps. The commentary's out there, you can read it and weep. And you can price it. If you don't like priced it, I've gone, it's not worth doing it. If you do it properly, that's okay. Your neighbour's cutting down the fence and putting palings in your backyard, and you eventually run out of palings, eventually no more left. So we're suggesting to government, how about we invest in some air quality monitoring in Weston Creek and over towards Malongo. It's a different topography, different air currents. At the moment, we're running measurements taken in Monash, which is absurd. Then we were talking about supporting jobs and economic growth, especially around the Western Creek area. Is there incentives that can be provided to businesses? Is there little bits of construction that can be done? Little bits of maintenance? Just so we're seeking ideas to put into our letter. Then we know the issue of the health, the sports, the recreation. What has come up a number of times is the therapy pool. Now I believe there's going to be one down in Tuckermong down in Erindale. Now if you're good and you're living in Duffy and you're struggling to drive, it's an awful long way to get to Erindale to get your hydrotherapy. So we're saying that's a bit of your menu. With all those extra people coming, that also has to come with responsibility and investment. Also, female change rooms. We're getting something done that VET, last few budgets, have been bending on. That has now been announced. They're doing something at VET and putting female change rooms. It's just amazing how hard that was to get the investment to make it happen. But it's happening. So we need to start arguing about all the other ones now, all the other bits and pieces. Now, we're talking about community connectedness, how people get around. You see things like paths, potholes, path network, bicycle network, and just the general transport. Look at the parking arrangements out here. This is meant to be, this is the upgrade. So then, my big bugger is cars. So keep on meeting people who've fallen over. And they keep on telling me about their injuries. So they're falling in a hole in a footpath. A bit of raised concrete. I feel like getting out there and taking whole photos and sending them off to Fix My Street. Fix My Street's just a portal and rarely works. So maybe we put in better Fix My Street. Yeah, I did ask you. But anyway, any thoughts on any of that? Comments? please give us some ideas. If you've got any ideas between now and Friday, send your suggestions to info@westonCreek.org.au. I see a question. Can you give it man Mike?
Sorry.
Roger. Sorry, man Mike. There we go. Great.
Not to be an awful wrench, but on the environmental part, one of my concerns is that there's a very large feral cat population in Weston. So just where we live, around Chevalier Street, every single time I go out there's I think a couple of cats that have taken residence up in my front yard and that kind of thing. And as much as I think that the stuff that you're addressing there about environment are really important, I think that protecting our native bird life is an incredibly important part of maintaining biodiversity, and so like sustainable environmental improvement here in Canberra. So I'm just curious if there's, I'm relatively new to the area in the last couple of years, so I don't know if in previous ones you've asked for, extension of the cat containment area kind of thing, or like where we're at with that in this area, or if that could be something that could be added to this proposal.
I see our secretary down there typing away, nodding her head, because I know she has a problem with feral cats as well. I have a problem with feral cats, especially when they catch the cockatoos, and clean up the mess afterwards. We've also got foxes.
I haven't seen that.
We've got a layer of foxes down by the stormwater between Street Drive and Mully Street. And there's one fox that likes to go for a walk in the daytime. He just goes for his stroll. Beautiful little creature. Except he's introduced and there is no control. He's going out to get the feed for the family. So, yeah, great suggestion. And I think I see our secretary going, yes. So, we'll do that.
And the only thing I wanted to add is, as a daily cycle to work, I actually really appreciate the amount of infrastructure we have here in Weston Creek. I think that, I'm all keen for it to be ongoing improvement, but it's one of the things which I feel really privileged about living here is that I can cycle here to do my shopping cycle to work, and like clearly the work that's been done up until now has also been exemplary, so I'm really appreciative of that.
This would be good. Much of that.
Just to comment on the cats. I think it was last July we had to register them all, and I have a feeling it's this July that all new cats have to be contained in all of the ACT. I got mine from the RSPCA, it was a Weston cat, estimated to be 2 years old, and I took her inside. And I put her out yesterday on the harvest and she just wanted to get back inside again. So I think it's a people problem, not so much a cat problem.
Anybody else? Lee, you
Yeah, I'll say something as well. Yeah, I just wanted to add as well. I think a lot of the sort of general infrastructure that we have in Weston Creek is getting quite old. It'd be nice to see, particularly just sort of the urban environment infrastructure, and it'd be nice to sort of suggest to the government things like footpaths, bollards, fences. There's a lot of really neglected public spaces in Weston Creek, and it actually might be that they're probably quite cheap to fix. It might just be a case of drawing attention to them.
My chance to make a comment about that, your comment as well. I say I've been in Canberra for about 4 months now, and all the positive things that you were saying, I've experienced as well. That C5 bike path is just terrific. And with regard to the wildlife that's around, rabbits and kangaroos and horses, horses kept off there, but there's poo on the track sometimes, which is okay, not too much. But really, as far as what Liam was talking about, my impression when I came to Canberra was a bit neglected, a bit grubby, a little bit untidy. The signs coming down High Marsh to come into Weston. It's a double sign. One sign's sort of half worn out and it's faded behind a green sign. And it's a little bit like, and the bike path's a good example of this actually. It looks like somebody's had a great idea. They put some signs up and they marked the paths really well, but there's other areas where it was put in on and it's been allowed to deteriorate. Having said that, don't knock all the positives, but what seems obvious to me, people have got great planning and great ideas and they put things in place, job done. Don't have to go back there again. And that's evident right around Canberra. It's a shame in a way because, as Liam said, these things aren't expensive to fit. Just a little bit of titivating it up, a little bit of tidying, that's all, and it would make a big difference. And that neglected, it's a shame, the capital of Australia, and I come from Perth, and Perth is tidy. The bus drivers wear uniforms, all the buses are the same colour, and they're all new. Having said that, the big excuse, but they've got the iron ore mines, and they've got the money and all that sort of, well, that actually shows up a bit. So, just that overall impression, but an easy fix one, if somebody was determined that should be done. Having said that, it's just wonderful all the things that are here that I do come across. I'm just buzzed that a little bit of finish, if you like, might be appropriate.
I tend to fix my street. You might have to wait a while, but it does get done.
Yeah, so welcome to Roger. Roger has been here for 4 months, as he said. Very civic-minded, and he joined our committee as well. He was very civic-minded in Perth, and he's brought all his experience with him. So I'll listen to what Roger says. Thank you. So, any further comments? I think we've written down everything here.
I noticed something that the Community Council's worked on quite extensively, but I think it bears emphasis is the upgrade to Coolman Court, especially the road back there. It's something that, like we discuss, every time we come, is that like this is such a beautiful site. It's a shame about the design it was foisted with at its inception, and I think, speaking to your point about job creation, and I think that's one of the big things is that it's not something that pulls in exploration. So we have all these spaces where you could have a business, but we have these beautiful cafes. Shame it's on a major road where you don't want to sit outside in al fresco dining. And I think that would be my recommendation as a sort of point of emphasis on the economic welfare. Is it's not that we are unable to generate economic activity here, but and again with the little things that make a big difference. That I think there's some stuff that the government could perhaps fast track that would encourage that sustainable local economic development that is gives a lot of jobs, especially to younger people. And I'd love to see that coming through in the next couple of years.
Yeah. When we, because you won't be aware of this story, when we met with Minister Steele to announce the Brearley Street upgrade, the proprietor of one of the cafes came up to him and said, "Chris, that's all well and good, and I like what you're going to do, improve seating and all that sort of thing." But he said, "I can't get my staff to work because you run your buses so infrequently on Sundays. My Sunday shift workers, if they can't get a parent to drive them, they can't attend work." I hope an advisor's listening. But the point is, we've been pushing hard as in, let's get those young people into work. It helps the family budget, even if the parents know we're forking out so much money for the teenager, or the teenager earns enough money and they go off and buy their own stuff. But work also builds up self-esteem. You go to work, you're proud of yourself, earn a few bucks, that sort of thing. But the Brearley Street upgrade, which is starting in May, the plans are out there on the TCS website. There will be more parking down there. The bus stop in Brearley Street is gone. You're not using it anymore. That will be car parking, short-term car parking. We're working on the taxi rank. Why you put taxi rank there, I don't know, especially when it's really become de facto BWS pickup parking. It's quite, intriguing. So it's a work in progress, and we have just said, look, this is great. This is the first stage of the upgrade. We look forward to more, and we'll come back to it again and again and again until you get it right. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, is there anything more on the budget? Ryan wants to say something.
That's right. To my name is Ryan from Wollongong, but today I'll be playing the role that the wonderful John Longovan plays at our meetings, which is to say that I love this wonderful place. And I noticed on the way in, just driving in, that there's some lovely new trees out at what has become known as Coolo Park. So I'm just wondering what is going on with that, noting that of course the plans to put a car park on Coolo Park are scrapped, and I'm wondering whether the council has any updates to provide on that project, and whether there's any opportunity in the budget submission that you'll be putting in for providing them with some ideas.
Right, every bit of correspondence we give to the government has an introductory paragraph. We eagerly wait you rezoning Coolo Park, so nobody can even contemplate building anything on it. Now, the history of that was the government decided they're going to put a car park in there. That's a bit of land over the road. They were going to have a vision car park over there that would have catered, in the end, 45 to 50 cars. They were going to have LED light poles within 10 metres of a 10-year-old child's bedroom. But that was okay. So we could all praise the almighty motor vehicle. We did a lot of work. We ended up in ACAT. The government pulled it on the steps of ACAT. They got a bit gun-shy, I think. I never know the reasons why. They then, as an act of revenge, put it on the forward sales agenda. They decided they're going to sell it. Still zoned to put something like a community health centre, a childcare centre, something like that. Well, it appears we've been in that run-off. So in the planning review, we're still arguing we want that rezoned. Now, the Liberals and the Greens will support it, the rezoning, but they have no way of moving it because the way the legislative structure is. So when the new territory plan comes in, we've been all there is and said, well, here's your opportunity, Mr. Hanson. Why don't you move that become green space? He said, I'll vote for it if Ms. Davidson moves it. Ms. Davidson says, I'll vote for it if Mr. Hanson moves it. Mr. Cox goes, no, I'll do it if Jeremy says. I think is where we're at. So I think there's going to be a long impasse on that, but it's certainly in our budget submission. Thanks for raising it, right? And our planning submission. We done on that? But like I said, by tomorrow afternoon, you can. Any further suggestions to info at? And we've got a really bad habit of putting them all in, including John McGovern's. We might nuance them a bit. So, that's gone pretty good. So we've got minutes of the last meeting. Who was the last meeting? I know you were there, Roger. Yes, you were there. Can somebody, have you looked at them? If so, okay, Roger's prepared to move them. Al, can you second them? Good on you, Al. Thank you. Nothing was done. I don't think there was any business arising in those minutes. Chair report, you all got the email, there's copies there. Unless there's something you really want me to talk about, I'll leave that alone. You would have received a further email today about something going on down the Campbell Labour Club. We're just going to work through that and try to figure out what they're doing. It's sort of immature. I don't know how they're going to get it through at the moment, but we've got to work into it and try to figure out in the context of the planning review. Yeah, I know what a cynic could say, which is, well, profits will fund the government's re-election campaign. We wouldn't say it publicly. It could, the look of the design could be a benefit. I've talked to a few people, they said the land's pretty underutilised. Other people have said, well, there's going to be a lot of traffic implications. So the usual development type margin. We'll just put more work into it, listen to more commentary, and we've already received a comment tonight from somebody based on that email saying, I don't see a problem with it. And or another one saying, don't got to be kidding. So, what you do is you weigh it all up and present both sides. Okay. So is there anything anybody else wants to raise? Cool, we're getting really nice. Okay, so thank you all for coming. I'll declare the meeting closed. Oh, sorry, apologies. Emma Davidson apologised. She can't come. Michelle Weston is one of our treasurer, can't come tonight. She's looking after her brother who's just had a moon boot put on his foot. He had an unfortunate accident. Who else? So there are any others, Michelle? Okay, well, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.